Hello everyone and welcome to our core skills lecture on vocabulary. Today we're going to be looking at adverbs. So before we get into what adverbs are and what they do and how to form them, I'd like for you to first identify the adverbs in this paragraph. Okay, there were 5 adverbs in total, and they were ethically, seemingly, relatively, occasionally, and generally. So what are the rules around adverbs? Firstly, adverbs describe verbs, and we know that verbs are doing words. They're actions such as sleep, read, laugh, hunt, succeed, avoid, and adverbs describe these verbs. So the verbs in the paragraph that we just saw were hunting, succeed, and avoid. The adverbs were ethically, occasionally, and generally. So these adverbs describe the verbs: hunting, ethically; succeed, occasionally; avoid, generally. Adverbs can also describe adjectives. And adjectives describe nouns. They tell us what kind. For example, what kind of hunting? Ethical hunting. And the adjectives that we saw in the paragraph are fair and new. The adverbs used to describe them were seemingly fair and relatively new. So, adverbs describe verbs and they also describe adjectives. And what do they do exactly? Well, they tell us how something is done or how an action is performed. So if we look at this picture, we see that a man is running. How is he running? He's running quickly. So in this case, quickly is an adverb and it describes the verb. Adverbs also tell us to what extent or how much. So if somebody says, I love you so much, so is the adverb. It is telling you how much or to what extent. Other words in this category include very, too, so I love you too much, I love you very much, I love you so much, extremely. Okay, so these are words that describe degree or extent. Adverbs also tell us how frequently or how often something is done. Sometimes, seldom, or never. So now that we know that, I would like you to identify the adverbs in this paragraph. Okay, so there were 4 adverbs there: highly, usually, extremely, and very. So highly complicated. Complicated in this context is an adjective, and it's describing how complicated, to what degree is it complicated. Highly. Okay, carried out. Carried out is a verb, and usually is used here as an adverb of frequency. How frequently is this action carried out? Extremely experienced teams. Here in this sentence, teams is the noun. What kind of teams? Experienced teams. So experienced is the adjective. How experienced? To what degree are they experienced? Extremely experienced. So extremely here is the adverb describing an adjective. And then we have very sophisticated equipment. Equipment is the noun. Sophisticated is the adjective which describes the equipment. And very is the adverb which describes how sophisticated, to what extent. Okay, what words do adverbs describe? Well, here we have highly complicated, extremely experienced, and very sophisticated. So here we have adverb adjective. What about usually carried out? Usually is an adverb and carried out is a verb. Okay, task. Identify the adverbs here. So there were 4 adverbs in that paragraph. We had enthusiastically agreed, tentatively took, clearly explained, and very excited. So what words do those adverbs describe? Enthusiastically agreed, tentatively took, clearly explained, and very excited. So here we have an adverb-verb structure. What about very excited? Here we have adverb adjective. So how do we form adverbs? You've probably noticed a pattern that most adverbs end in ly. Okay, so we can add ly to the end of an adjective to make it into an adverb. Let's look at some examples. So enthusiastic becomes enthusiastically, tentative, tentatively, usual, usually, clear, clearly, high, highly, and so on. Okay, what are the rules? Because as you can see in the table, sometimes we have to add more letters than just ly to create the adverb. So the first rule is simply add ly. Tentative, and we just add ly to the end of the word. The same with usual, we just add an ly at the end of the word. So these are simple structures. So if the word already ends in L, you'll add another L to make it double. So I want you to have a go with these words here. All right, so here are your answers. Randomly, excitedly, quietly, fiercely, exceptionally, practically, and logically. Okay, second rule. If the adjective ends in C, then you have to add ally to the end. For example, enthusiastic becomes enthusiastic ally. Fantastic becomes fantastic ally. Ecstatic, ecstatic ally. Now, the pronunciation, guys, is just enthusiastically, fantastically, ecstatically. All right, we just pronounce it as if it were just an ly. We don't actually pronounce the A. Okay, but the spelling, to be correct, needs to be ally. Your turn. And here we go, genetically, systematically, erratically. Rule number 3. If the adjective ends in Y, then we have to drop the Y and add I-L-Y instead. So happy. To create an adverb out of happy, we have to remove the Y and replace it with an I before we add ly. Same thing with easily, scarily, funnily, and lazily. Your turn. And here we go. Clumsily, sleepily, angrily, noisily, and hungrily are our answers. Rule number 4. If the adjective ends in le, we need to replace the e with the y. Okay, so we just remove the e and add y in its place. For example, simple, we replace the e with a y. Gentle, remove the e and add y. Arguable, same thing. Respectable, the same thing. So if there's an e, we have to remove it and just replace it with a y. Your turn. And here we go. Fashionably, noticeably, illegibly, and nobly. Okay, I'm going to show you a table now with some mixed adjectives with mixed word endings, and I'd like you to turn them into adverbs. Okay, here are our answers. Okay, moving on. Complete these sentences with the appropriate adverb. So we've got some adjectives down the bottom of the page here: cognitive, slight, linguistic, presumable, and developmental. You need to turn these into adverbs and then complete the sentence with the correct one. Okay, let's look at the answers. Presumably, all children develop language around the same age. However, developmentally, boys acquire language skills slightly later than girls. Growing up in a linguistically diverse environment helps children to not only be multilingual, but also more open-minded and cognitively more developed. Okay, let's move on to the next task. Complete the paragraph with the appropriate adverbs. So here we have the adjectives traditional, most, genetic, organic, collective, and increasing. Okay, let's check the answers. Traditionally, food was grown collectively in villages and shared by all. Now, food is mostly grown in factories and is genetically modified. However, consumers are becoming increasingly interested in buying organically grown food. Okay, last one. You can complete this paragraph by turning these adjectives into adverbs. Okay, let's have a look at the completed paragraph. Culturally diverse societies are said to be multicultural. Ethnic diversity can lead to a generally cohesive society if minorities are included in the social fabric. Politically, multiculturalism has been hotly debated in countries like Australia, where the country is socially divided over the benefits of multiculturalism. Now, we know that number one would be culturally, because this is a definition of multicultural or multiculturalism. Therefore, the answer would be culturally diverse, because it's defining multi, meaning diverse, and cultural. Ethnic diversity can lead to a generally cohesive society, meaning how cohesive, to what extent? Generally. Politically, multiculturalism has been hotly debated. Usually when we talk about something that's being hotly debated, this is usually to do with politics. And then we're left with Australia, where the country is socially divided, meaning socially people have different views or opinions on this issue. Okay, let's recap. Adverbs can describe verbs or they can describe adjectives. They tell us how an action is done. They tell us how much or what extent. And they also tell us how often or how frequent. We can turn adjectives into adverbs by adding ly, y, or ally. Adverbs enhance your writing. They also enhance your speaking. They make your writing a lot more interesting and advanced. So if you would like to practice practice using adjectives in your writing, I suggest that when you write an essay or a practice essay, go back, reread it and ask yourself, where could I add some adverbs in here to make my writing a bit more interesting? Another piece of advice is when you're reading a newspaper or a magazine article, as you're reading, take notes or just even highlight or underline any adverbs that you read, so any ly ending verbs, and ask yourself, what are they describing? How are they using adverbs in this piece of writing? And then you can start incorporating that also into your writing. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.